I'm Chris Motes, and this is Faith in Politics. On this broadcast, we range from the soul to the state as we cultivate those virtues and explore those principles that help us live well as faithful Catholics in this great land. Well, welcome back for another episode, folks. We are into October. It's one of my favorite months of the year when the flannels and the jeans come out, the leaves start to fall, beautiful weather. Also, it's Respect Life Month. We're going to be focusing on respecting life from conception to natural death on this program throughout the month of October. Got a great list of guests lined up for this month. So thanks for joining us. Also, for those of you who caught our little mini episode the other week, the St. Thomas More Society of South Dakota, Catholic lawyers in this great state, have invited us to join them as we begin a novena, the First Friday devotion. For the next 9 months, they've invited us to pray with a particular way to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, that heart of love, for the Dobbs case, the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, this big pro-life case. The Supreme Court is going to hear it in December, but they pointed out, hey, the court's term opens in October, and we're expecting a decision by next June. That's actually 9 months. It also happens to be the length of a pregnancy. So join us in praying for that big pro-life case for the next 9 months. Okay, to kick off our Respect Life Month series, I am very excited to have on the program with us today Leslie Unruh. Leslie, you are the founder of the Alpha Center in Sioux Falls. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I am just delighted that you're on the show, and this name, Leslie Unruh. I'd heard so much about you for years from my folks and others in Sioux Falls. I was living out of state for military service, and you've just got such a compelling story, and the Alpha Center does such great work, so I'm delighted to hear the story. But let's maybe just start out, for those listeners who haven't maybe had the pleasure of learning about the Alpha Center's mission. Let's start out, Leslie, with what is the Alpha Center and what do you do?
Well, we are what pro-life looks like. We love babies, we love moms, we love families, we love the dads, and we want to see mamas have no shame connected to this whole issue of shaming. And these young women are hurting, and they come to us, and they want help, they want hope. And so we have a saying that's called, we clear the message of abortion with a message of hope. And we clear all that confusion that a young woman feels in her heart and all the pressure that's out there. And we save babies, and we've been doing it since 1984.
It's so beautiful. And I think for a pregnancy help center, a lot of people don't necessarily know that when Roe versus Wade became the law of the land, abortion facilities, and we don't call them clinics on this show, abortion facilities outnumbered pregnancy help centers by 3-1 in this country. And now it's opposite. There are 3 pregnancy help centers for every one.
Yes.
And when we talk about pregnancy help centers in the state of South Dakota, we talk about Alpha Center.
Wow.
I mean, it's really amazing and beautiful. Going back to 1984, what's the origin story of Alpha Center? What got you thinking that this was an important need for South Dakota?
I don't think we can take any credit for it. I was one of those wounded women, and my husband was totally in a different place than I was. And I started really not because I wanted to, to help him. He had put an ad in the phone book without telling me, and he had thought he knew a man that was an inventor, and so they put, because one of the hospitals at the time had put, and I think everybody would know who that would be, I won't say, but they had put this information on abortion information. And they said it was safer than childbirth, and it really upset him. And so he decided to put this thing together and call this inventor a machine, and he did different tapes. And he said abortion information, and because he put that in there, it went automatically into the phone book. And he started getting calls, hundreds of calls, of women who wanted to have an abortion. They wanted to talk to somebody. And he couldn't find anybody at that time. And so talk about a journey. We kind of went around to everybody. And at that time, I had asked Bishop Dudley to help me. And he said, okay, what do we got to do? And so we were able to get some people to answer the phones. But at first, I wasn't really comfortable with the whole message.
Sure.
But because I'd gone through it myself, and my situation was a health issue at the time, and the doctor that was my doctor happened to be the abortion doctor, Dr. Buck Williams at the time. And so I had what they call Wolff's Parkinson White. And he's like, no, we're not gonna have a pregnancy here. And long story short, because over the years, you have to go through the healing and take responsibility for it, because I believe there were times when God wanted me to know exactly, and there were warnings. But because of that pain and shame and everything that went with it, I came from a different perspective than the average pro-lifer. Yeah. I really came to the woman to say, hey, you don't have to feel bad anymore. Let's get through this. You don't have to do this.
Yes.
And I would tell her, right? Pretty frankly, at that time, it was suction machines. And so I would say, do you know what that's going to be like? And I'd be pretty honest about it, graphically honest. And they would say, no, I don't want to do that. So I started meeting these girls all sorts of places late at night, and we would save the baby, and I would start bringing them home because they didn't have anywhere to go. And from that grew the Alpha Center, because we couldn't keep all those babies and girls at our house because we had 5 children of ourselves living at our house at the time. Yeah. And so it just evolved. There wasn't any national movement that I knew of at that time. And we just started helping them. And one day, Bishop Dudley said to me, you need a maternity home. And I said, yeah, I do. And so there was a big home across the street from Augustana College. And miraculously, somebody bought it. And we filled it up with girls. And the rest is history. We've been hanging in there all these years. And just it's been evolving for many years. And now we have this beautiful, fabulous center and employees and at the time it was all volunteers.
Yes. I think anybody who stepped foot in your beautiful facility realizes right away what you've been describing, which is healing and care for women is really at the center of what you do. You step into the Alpha Center and you're like, there's just like this aura of hospitality and peace. There's nothing, it's just so warm and welcoming. And everybody who goes there, like they'll share that testimony. And so part of what you offer now too is there's a beautiful, not only is there an opportunity to, to speak with somebody, really heart to heart sharing, but there's also, you have a medical director and, and I understand an ultrasound machine, kind of top of the line.
Yes, we do. We have 2 of them. We even have one now for a van that we're going to be able to go out into different communities.
Tell us more about the van, because this is a new addition to the mission.
This is so exciting. We are so excited about this. Well, abortion has changed, and especially since COVID. Yeah. Most of abortions now are chemical abortions. So a woman takes 2 different pills. Yeah. So we will get a call from somewhere in the state, and the girl will have found out from somewhere that you can actually stop and reverse the abortion by taking progesterone. Yep. So Dr. Ritter, our medical director, has done this several times, and it's amazing. And it works. And we want to do it more and more. And so we also had another doctor, Dr. Fegan, and he said, we got to get a van. We got to get out there. And we had others that partnered also as well. And they said, let's just, wherever a woman will call, we will help her. We will save her baby. And so we've been pretty excited. And so we're trying to get people in every town in South Dakota to say, hey, I'll help you. Nurses, doctors, and we can save these babies all over the state of South Dakota with this van.
Well, it's really a beautiful thing, too. I mean, and I don't know if I'm going to find the bill number. There was a bill last legislative session. Catholic Conference supported it. Dr. Ritter testified. Yes. It's something like 30 to 40% of abortions in South Dakota are what they call chemical abortions. Yes. It's essentially a poison that the woman takes. It's not actually the abortion industry will call it a medication abortion, but we have to remember that medication heals. It doesn't kill. Right. So that's it. And the abortion industry actually wants they want an increasing number of these chemical abortions. So to actually, recognize that challenge and meet it with a mobile unit, it's really
amazing.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
It's amazing. We had a call from a young woman who was at a college, in her first week of college, and I had gotten, kind of get to talking around, and some woman just called me at home on the weekend, and she said, "There's a baby. It's laying there." I said, "What do you mean it's laying there?" She said, "Nobody is going to claim it, but there's this baby." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Somebody had done an abortion themselves." See, the woman becomes the abortion doctor with these chemical abortions. And here she was, didn't know what to do. She left it in the shower room. And this has now changed, even post-abortion. Women who are hurting after an abortion, it's changed. A lot of times it would be 5 to 10 years after an abortion where a woman would feel like they want to come forward and get some help. But now it's immediate.
Yes.
So it's flipped this thing upside down really within the last year.
Yes.
And we are all having to come up to speed really fast in the pro-life movement of how do we reach out to these young women?
Yeah, it's really a part of what Alpha Center has done through the years too has been to recognize that at the heart of this really maybe confusing or frightening experience for a woman, oftentimes a very young woman, there may be coercion that's at the heart of it. So even in the legal arena, I know Alpha Center, working with legislators, and you've got a great attorney, has been really instrumental to developing pro-life legislation for the state of South Dakota that is centered around providing really good, high-quality information to women in these oftentimes coercive situations.
Yes.
Do you want to say a little more about that?
That's something that's really happening right now, South Dakota, because we were very fortunate and blessed to have met a man who was the famous lawyer for the Baby M case.
Yeah.
And he started talking about all the statistics and what was happening with women, how many of them are coerced into abortion. Now, there's pressure and then there's coercion. Yeah. But like if maybe a family member says you're not going to college if you don't have an abortion, or we're not going to give you that car, or sometimes that happens. It's sad to say. Yeah. Or there's a boyfriend, or in one situation recently, there was a young woman who became pregnant by her boss, and he said, "I'm married. You have to have an abortion." And so she didn't want to. That's not what she believed in. Yes. And she ended up having 2, in fact, until finally, we could say to her, "You're being coerced." Yeah. So many of these women want to tell their stories now, and they have told their stories. So we were able to take them to the South Dakota legislature, and they heard those stories. And now we are on our way to 8th Circuit Court. And it's big. It's something we need a lot of prayer, a lot of, this is going to be big for our whole country. And we're looking at being there in this next year, and we could be at the Supreme Court in 1 year. Yeah,
and that case, it's Planned Parenthood versus Nome now because she's the governor.
Yes.
But it started a decade ago with House Bill 1217 in 2011. That's something maybe we needed to talk about more later in the month, because that is like an untold story right now that people don't really know about. It's got dynamite potential in the pro-life movement, especially if Dobbs, some are thinking that maybe the court won't take Dobbs all the way. So to actually know that South Dakota, originating with kind of an Alpha Center message, has the potential to shape pro-life policy for a whole country is really compelling.
And my husband always says, we might be a flyover state, but we are a beacon of hope. And when it comes to this issue, and God has risen up women that told their stories. And so that's where my heart is. And that's why we have even a memorial garden at the Alpha Center. Yeah. So women can know that they don't have to live in shame, but they can go forward, and that God loves them and has a plan for their life.
You've mentioned a number of times just the Lord as part of this story. Are there any moments in the Alpha Center story where just the Lord's providence just jumps out at you and you can feel or see His blessing and protection? Anything? I'm sure there are a million, but anything that really jumps out in your memory?
Well, over the years, that's the only thing that keeps you going in this. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. There was one young woman that brought a statue and put it in the garden. And I remember we were moving from that particular office over to our new office 5 years ago. And I remember there in the evening going back and looking at the different things, thinking, I can't bring all these, but what can I do with them? I have to honor the women. But there was one statue of the Blessed Mother. And I never forget that night, the sunset, and I remember this peace. And I think to know that women need to know that they're loved and that the love is so great that they need to reach out and know, and we have people that will put them in touch, and to know there's healing.
Yes.
And I think to know that was the one time, I think for me that night, it's hard for me to put into words because I don't want to start crying here. I wasn't planning on you asking me that question.
Sometimes I cry. It's okay.
It was an amazing moment. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You know, you mentioned too, Leslie, that it's hard sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that especially as Christians, it is really important that we bear one another up in our burdens. Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to just share with the listeners part of the struggle? It could be a story, or maybe just, share the burden. I want to give people who are listening right now an opportunity to bear you and the Alpha Center up in the difficulty. It is hard. So in whatever way that listeners can, through prayer or otherwise, tell us a little bit about what's hard about it.
Well, one time somebody said to me, boy, leadership is lonely. And I was like, yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. And I was giving a tour this last year, and, you always think you've heard it all when you've seen different women come in for different reasons, and you see the boyfriends or the fathers or the parents sitting in the parking lot, and they're pressuring this young woman. And the one very sad day for me was after giving this tour, I saw a man in the memorial garden for post-abortive men and women, and he was just sobbing. And he was trying to stay away from the group that he had come with. And I noticed him, and I thought, he must be a forgotten father. Men don't get to say when a woman's pregnant with their child. And God puts in that man to be a protector. And yet there's all these crazy laws, and he doesn't get to have a say. Yeah. And I just felt that pain in him, and he was kind of waiting. And then pretty soon a woman walked up, and she's like, I hope those women, and she pointed to the memorial wall where there's all these messages that are just heartbreaking, that women have left, or men or grandparents have left for these children to honor them. And she pointed to it, and she looked at me, and she was angry, and she said, I hope they give to you, to this organization. And I just looked at her. And so I think for me, a lonely part is when I looked back at her and I wanted to say something that wasn't very kind at the moment, because I felt like I was pretty protective of the women. Yeah. And I said, well, we don't need to shame them anymore. Yeah. They are living with the greatest heartbreak you can ever imagine. Yeah. And I think that we need to reach out more. And I think abortion would be over if we would look at the woman. It's easy to think about the baby and to say adoption's the answer. Yeah. But I think it would have been over years ago if we would love them both.
Yes. Yeah. If you're just tuning into the conversation, this is Chris Motz. You're listening to Faith in Politics. We are in Respect Life Month, and I'm visiting with Leslie Unruh, the founder of the Alpha Center, a pregnancy help center in Sioux Falls, with just a really compelling mission, a mission of love, a mission of healing. Leslie, one of the things that I think people are struck by as they learn about Alpha's mission is that it's not just about getting the baby born and then see you later.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tell us a little bit about how Alpha walks with mothers and fathers for years after birth.
Yes. That's the best part. Oh, I tell you, this year's really it's been a little tougher because I think of the lawsuit with Planned Parenthood and everything, but I think God has just brought these babies back so I can meet them as older, as adults, and a baby that had a baby.
Yeah.
And to see them loving on Alpha Center and so grateful for their lives. And I met one young man who, he said, I'm a Navy SEAL and I got to protect the president. And there's so many exciting things that every single one of us, the mold is broken. God breaks the mold with every single one of us. So unique. And to see these babies come back and to see the legacy that they have already is so exciting. And that's what keeps me really going. Sometimes people say, well, how do you do it? I think the thing in this is to last.
Yeah.
Then you can see all these blessings of what comes. But it's hard because you want to reach out and you want them to understand how important life is. But sometimes they don't choose life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a Friday and you think you're going to have a great weekend. And all of a sudden you find out that we just saw one of the clients and their plan is to abort. Yeah. And then you got to hold everyone together that's there and keep them there because it's high stress.
Yeah.
To be in that environment day after day, year after year. And, we're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that there's a hotline. There's someone there that will answer that phone. Oh. And so that takes a lot of people that you really have to be committed. It's not a job.
Yes.
And there's not a lot of people these days that want to do that.
Yes. Yeah, it's so striking to me that 37 years after you founded it, we can kind of talk, idealistic thoughts about saving babies and pro-life laws, but when it comes down to it, it's just, there's a lot of work involved too.
A lot of work.
And
it costs,
right.
a lot of money to do this also. But if you're faithful, which we've been, it always works out. I've asked a lot of stories, actually miraculous stories. Recently, we had a young couple come that I had never met, or I didn't think I had ever met them, but I had met her evidently years ago as a baby. And she had just found out that she had been adopted and that the Alpha Center was the reason she was alive.
Oh, my goodness.
And they wanted to be involved. They want to do something. They want their children to know the story and how important it is. So I think that's the exciting thing for us. Now we get to see all of the fruit of our efforts. And so I tell people, just stay involved, stay faithful, and you will see amazing things.
Yeah. How true that is. And we, the future is yet ahead of us. The Lord is doing great things. 50 years following Roe versus Wade, it is not settled law. No. There are many Americans who are so firmly convinced in the sanctity of life from the moment of conception. As we kind of are entering a new pro-life moment, it feels like, with this big Dobbs case. We've got a new composition on the high court. Leslie, what are your hopes for the future of the pro-life movement, and any thoughts or tips to offer to those thinking about what the future might hold?
Well, I think the important thing is to know that if you get a negative test when a young woman will come, you have to look into her watery eyes and tell her that she wasn't created for what lifestyle she's living at that point. She was created for something so much better. Yeah. And that we need to tell her the most important sex organ she has is her mind. And to have that mind and heart connection. Yeah. And just like Jesus said to the woman at the well, go and sin no more. Yes. We have to reach out to this young woman, love her, and believe she can say no. Yes. That she doesn't have to stay in that lifestyle. Yes. And that's, I think, the thing that's unique about us is we do those life skills classes. We speak into their lives, and we tell them that that's not who they are. Yeah. That doesn't even look good on them, what that life is right now. Let's do something different. Let's mentor them. Let's walk them through it. And I think that's what we have to be ready for post-Roe. Yes. we need to be out in those schools. We need to be talking about abstinence until marriage. Yes, I said the word abstinence.
Yeah.
It'd be better if we'd actually say chastity and purity, and to teach them.
Yes.
And we have purity balls. We have God, Mom, and Me teas. We have what we call father-son timeouts. We do night to remember. And it's so parents can be the primary sex educator of their child.
Yes.
And so fathers can talk to their daughters. And you have these 3 precious little girls. And I mean, I look at them and think, wow. And what is, dads need to be dads, and we need to teach these dads. And we're pretty excited at Alpha Center because right now we're about really close to being able to have men on our staff to do the fatherhood program.
Yeah. You were talking about that earlier in the year, and just to have mentorship. There are so many broken homes out there.
Yes.
A lot of younger guys, they didn't necessarily have an experience of a good father.
Right.
So to have that mentorship, I mean, I just think it's so compelling. The mentorship that, I'm reminded of Mother Teresa. Mm-hmm. She said, loneliness is the new leprosy. We're just like we don't have these relationships that are so important to forming us, and Alpha Center's committed to
we're all about relationships. We really are. And I think that people should start to prepare, and South Dakotans should start to prepare for post-Roe. And that's the kind of thing that really probably keeps me up at night.
Say a little more about that. We've got about 30 seconds left, but let's finish
We all have to do more than just say abortion's wrong.
Yeah.
And when these young women are there, we need to be ready. We need each home, each family needs to say, what is pro-life going to look like when Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned? Yeah. And it is.
Yes.
And so each one of us are going to be very busy with helping those young women in crisis. And we need to be thinking about that right now, family to family.
Yes. Well, Leslie, where can folks go if they want learn a little bit more about Alpha Center and what it does?
Well, they can go to our website. They can go to the abstinence.net website also if they want to learn about abstinence until marriage and about chastity and purity. But they can go to the alpha.org.
alphacenter.org and abstinence.net are 2 great places to visit. And I know you've got a presence on at least Instagram, but I think Facebook and maybe some other social media outlets too.
We do.
So, Leslie Unruh, thank you so much for joining us on Faith and Politics. And thank you, dear listeners, as always, for tuning in. If you have feedback, comments, critiques, tell us what you want to hear in the future. You know where to go, sdcatholicconference.org. Click Contact Us, drop us a line. Until next time, live well.